because I see a career growth in the music industry as increments. You don't really ever like just hit it big. Like, there are the occasional one-hit wonders, but if you're, a DIY artist like I am, it's all about those little incremental successes that slowly bring you up.
Welcome to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast with Bree Noble. Bree is a musician, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Women of Substance music radio and podcast. Bree's interviews with successful female musicians and industry pros are both inspirational and informational. She also answers your questions about the music business. Bree is on a mission to help you create great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business, and to truly become a female entrepreneur musician.
You are tuned into the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. My name is Bree Noble, and I am super excited to get this interview out there because I really, really love my conversation with triple threat Daphne Willis. And I call her a triple threat because number one, she's a great artist and performer. Secondly, she is a fantastic songwriter and is signed by a well-known publishing company and is getting songs placed all over the place on TV, in movies, and being performed by other artists. So we talk a bit about that on the show. But her third of the triple threat is that her music is so authentic and has such a deep message. So if you've heard her songs on the Women of Substance radio podcast, we played them recently in the beginning of November. We played two of her songs. One is called Dopamine. One is called Somebody's Someone, that just gets me every time. So if you haven't checked those out, definitely go over to wospodcast.com and look for episodes number 687 and 690. I'll get to my interview with Daphne in a minute, but let me give you a little information about our amazing sponsor. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you've probably heard me mention our sponsor, Studio Sweden Headphones. I'm extremely proud to have them sponsor this show, not only because they make a great product, but because they are innovators, because they're trying to bring together the world of headphones in a way that no one else has. If you've noticed, like sometimes you try to buy headphones and there's these really cool looking headphones, but they actually don't sound that good. Or these headphones that sound amazing and they've got all the technology you want, but they're not really at all stylish. They are trying to bridge that gap. They're trying to bring together the technology and the fashion, and they really have done that in their line of headphones. Their headphones are all wireless and they do work with Bluetooth devices, but you do have the ability to connect a cord if you want to actually use them as corded headphones. They're so versatile and I use them all the time, whether I'm on the go or I'm here in my studio recording. They are the perfect companion for all things audio. So I highly recommend you check them out at studiosweden.com. That's SUDIO Sweden.com. And you don't just have to be in Europe to take advantage of this. They have free worldwide shipping. So this is open to all of you, everyone that's listening right now. Go to studiosweden.com, check out how cool they look, and I can attest to how great they sound, and consider them as a great Christmas gift for somebody that you love, or maybe yourself. And when you go to studiosweden.com, make sure to enter code FEM15 to get 15% off your entire order, plus, of course, the worldwide free shipping. That's Studio Sweden, SUDIOSWEDEN.com, and be sure and put in FEM15 for your 15% discount. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my guest, Daphne Willis. Spanning multiple genres from roots rock to pop and hip hop is how some would describe my guest today, Daphne Willis's music. She's a Nashville-based singer-songwriter who recently released her new single, Dopamine. Her music is sincere, compelling, with lyrics whose messages cover a multitude of relevant issues. Here is my interview with Daphne Willis. So that's a little bit about Daphne Willis. So Daphne, is there anything that you want to tell our listeners about you that's maybe a little bit unique or quirky that's not covered in your bio? Something that maybe, is a little bit different about you?
Well, I think the bio does a kind of a good job of giving you a generic rundown of kind of where I'm coming from, et cetera. But I don't know. I think everybody's kind of got all kinds of quirks. I know I have a lot of recent stuff that I've been writing about has been to do with recovery. I quit drinking about a year and a half ago. So a lot of what I write about recently has been about kind of this personal growth, self-empowerment kind of vibe. And I think I've always kind of written music along those lines, but it's definitely taken more of a turn in that direction. And I felt like, sharing a lot more of my personal life with my fans over the last year has definitely sparked interest in exploring new quirks and finding new things to be kind of in on. So it's kind of been, I guess it's kind of been like the quest for quirks in the last year and a half. It's been really fun. The latest I've been doing, the latest thing I've been doing is this thing called ice baths, which are...
Oh, wow, you're brave.
Have you heard of this? It's there's a guy named Wim Hof and a friend of mine, another artist, a friend of mine named Charlie Mars, who's extremely talented. You need to check him out. He got me involved, or he got me kind of into this whole ice bath thing. And it's something that I do every other day about.
So is it an actual ice bath, or is it just like super cold with actual ice, or is it just really cold?
Oh no, it's real ice. Like I actually just did one before we had this call. Oh. So I went and got 80 pounds of ice, and I put it in the bathtub here. I'm staying at an Airbnb, and I filled the rest up with cold water. And you do rounds of it. So I did 2 rounds, 5 minutes each, and you kind of do like meditation and breathing stuff in between and beforehand. And the thing about this Wim Hof method is, and I know this sounds insane to most people. They're like, oh my God, this is insane. But it's really cool conceptually, because the breathing that you do before you get in the tub oxygenates your blood, and it actually releases a lot of adrenaline into your system. So when you get in the ice, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't sting, you don't feel much because of all the adrenaline. And it's really good for inflammation, and it's a really good kind of ritualistic practice for anything trauma related, anything, kind of in the mental space of just overcoming your own obstacles. And it certainly clears my head up. So I've kind of gotten into it, and I wasn't sure I was going to like it or not the first time I did it. And I've actually really gotten into it. So
it's really interesting, because I know you're on tour right now. So do you kind of use that to just like clear out all the stress of the road?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And I work out too. So like, especially after like a hard workout, it's when you just totally zen out. It releases an incredible amount of endorphins into your system. And so it's like a de-stressor. It's like, icing away the stress.
Wow. Really, really interesting. I have to look into this. I don't know if I can stand it. I'd probably do better doing a super hot bath than a super cold, but I could try it.
Well, you can go back and forth too.
Yeah, that's what I was heard. I've heard of like doing the freezing cold and the really hot in the shower kind of thing.
Yes. And you can do that too. It's all about what you want. You're free.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I know this is a strange segue, but I did need to find out about that. That's pretty interesting. So tell us, how did you get started in music? What was kind of your path and your journey?
Both of my parents were music majors at UT Austin. So My dad was an engineering major, and then he minored in business and went on to work at Sony BMG on the sales side. And my mom was a vocal major, so I pretty much started singing when I popped out.
No.
And grew up in a musical family, you know, so it was just always around and always there. And my parents have certainly been extremely supportive of me kind of pursuing my dreams and going down this route. Originally planned on making music my career. It's always been my number one passion. But I also grew up seeing how struggle in the music industry, and that it's really hard. Parents were very realistic about all of those aspects of the music industry. And so I was going to DePaul University in Chicago, where I grew up, and I had plans to be a teacher, and I wasn't sure if I was going to go on to be a college teacher, a high school teacher. English. I was taking English, but I ended up kind of doing this like little acoustic EP. I started writing songs in high school, and so I did this little recording, this acoustic EP, and it ended up getting licensed. There's like all these sub-licensing companies that you can get, like, you know, when you're shopping in Walmart and you hear music, or you're at P.F. Chang's and you hear music. Well, that's called a sub-licensing contract. So I got one of those, and it was playing on American Airlines flights. And the president of this is a crazy story. The president of Vanguard Records was on a flight, and his iPod died, and he plugged his headphones into the armchair, and my song was playing, and he looked at the pamphlet and saw that I wasn't signed. And I was 19, and they flew me out to LA, and they signed me. And that
is a crazy story. Wow.
Yeah, it's a really crazy story.
So can I ask, how did you even get your music sub-licensed in the first place? Were you seeking that out, or did someone else?
Yeah, I sought it out. You can,
okay.
I mean, there's a ton of them. You can go online and find them, and you submit your music to them, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward process signing on with. There's a lot of companies that do that kind of music placement.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that do it, but you don't often hear a story like that where a person that has power actually plugged their headphones in.
Oh, I know, it's insane. Like it's really insane. But yeah, that's what happened, and then, you know, of course, my parents were like, well, this is a very good opportunity, and you know, you can always go back to school, so let's do it. So I went for it, and they had me going back and forth from Nashville, and eventually I ended up, you know, moving to Nashville, and that was kind of how it all started.
Okay. So kind of continue the story, because I don't actually, I mean, I've read your bio, but it doesn't like detail all of this. So you're signed to a label. What happens next, and how do you end up where you are today?
Okay. Well, so I get signed to this label, and they're amazing, and I love Vanguard Records, and we did 2 records and an EP. And over the course of that time, I grew as a person and as an artist, and I think that I kind of took a turn musically and artistically that was just kind of out of their wheelhouse. So we ended up going separate ways.
So what was your style when you were on Vanguard?
It was a little bit more in like the singer-songwriter, folky kind of vibe. And now it's a lot more in kind of the soul pop, funk pop kind of vibe. And they're more of an Americana, singer-songwriter, alternative, that kind of, I don't know, kind of vibe. And they're pretty niche, so it just kind of wasn't really working out. So we kind of went our separate ways, and I've been independent on the artist side ever since, and remained in Nashville. And in Nashville, you write all the time. You're always co-writing, or I am. I mean, everybody I know in Nashville is just constantly writing. So I had this big catalog and was looking for publishing deals. And I ended up getting a publishing deal with Sony ATV. So I've been signed to them on the writing side for about 2 years now. And then I'm still independent on the artist side, which I love. You know, I love the freedom, and I love the flexibility, and so the team building aspect and the business side of all of that goes into being an independent artist, I think is very fascinating. So that's kind of where I am now. And right now I'm, you know, writing songs at Sony ATV. I do a lot of writing for like film and TV, and I do a lot of writing for other artists, and I do a ton of writing for myself, obviously. And then I tour kind of perpetually throughout the year. So when I'm, you know, when I'm out, I'm out. When I'm home, I'm writing, and that's kind of what's up.
So can you explain to, you know, some of the listeners that might not know, as far as a publishing deal like that, do they just take the publishing on things that they assign you, or are they basically, you know, have control over everything that you write?
It's a co-pub deal. So they take half of the publishing, and it's everything. It's everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So it doesn't matter what co-writers you're with or anything. You're just basically their artist.
Yes.
The publishing side.
And they pay me in advance for that, and they also, you know, provide travel budget money. Like, you know, I go and I write in New York City, and I go and I write in LA. So they cover those expenses for me, and then they also cover, you know, demo budgets. So having a budget to actually record these songs,
oh my gosh, that's
is, you know, kind of a huge burden, because those expenses can be really really cumbersome.
Do you ever record your own demos, or do you like to have other artists do it?
I do sometimes, but I'm not really a track person. I do know how to use the software, and like I could bust out a demo if I really wanted to, but it's not really my jam. I enjoy producing, but I don't enjoy the technicalities of being the techie side of it. So I usually hire an engineer when I'm producing, and have them kind of handle the technical side of things. Because that's
Do you usually do your own vocals, or do you sometimes want like a different sound on your demos?
I always do my own vocals.
Okay.
Well, it depends. I mean, the other thing is that in a lot of these writing sessions now, to save time, we do 3-way writing sessions, and one of the writers is a track person. So as we're doing the song, we make the demo.
Wow.
Or we're, you know, so I'm working in studios most of the time now, where there's either already a track that's been started that we're writing to, so we literally are just dropping in a vocal on a track, or we're in a studio with a producer and another writer, and the 3 of us, or the 2 of us, or the 4 of us, or whatever, kind of make the track and the song as we go. Which I love, and I personally enjoy that route, because I think it just kind of streamlines the process. And also, when you write a song and you produce it at the same time, it kind of allows you to just really listen for what, you know, that production side of the song.
Yeah, that's that, you know, that instant gratification too, of like, oh, I actually created a real thing. It's not just something.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And to be able to walk away with, you know, an MP3 that you can pass around, send off to your team, you know, that's always nice too.
That is very cool. So can you share like some of the places that your songs, you know, have the, you know, movies and TV that they've been in, or maybe some of the artists that have recorded your songs you've written on?
Sure. I just had a placement for, there's a show called The Good Doctor on ABC. And I just had Well, my song "Somebody Someone" is currently playing
Love
in
that song.
Thank you very much. Um, so they're using "Somebody Someone" in their promo, and I believe it's going to be on the episode next week.
Mm.
I have had, let's see, I've gotten a lot of placements lately, which has been very, very lucky. The Christmas Office Party movie that was out last year, I had a song in the trailer for that. I've had some other promos, some SEC promos, I had something for an Xbox video game. Yeah.
What about artists? Are there any artists that have recorded your stuff that people would know?
Well, I work with, I don't know if you remember O-Town.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they just released an EP and I have 2 cuts on that.
Mm.
I write with an artist named Jen Bostic, and
I love Jen Bostic.
Oh, right on. Well, she and I wrote "Somebody Someone," so that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that. Great. She's so great.
She is so great.
Now you got me another idea. I've got to get her on the show. I've played her music several times, but
she's crushing it right now, especially over in the UK. But yeah, so we write together, and I have a cut on her record that's coming out. And obviously she has 2 cuts on my record, so that's cool. I'm trying to think who else has cut stuff. I work with an artist named Atara Valentine, who's out of New York, and he was on Atlantic, but he left because he kind of changed his vibe. And Sony, he is also a writer at Sony. And now he's just a dear friend of mine. He's an incredible artist. And he is currently working on a project that I wrote a few songs with him for, and they're kind of developing that. And I really have like a good feeling about all of that because
that's cool. Yeah. Maybe in 6 months, everyone will be like, of course I know who that is.
Yeah, exactly. And that is definitely like how it's going to go. Like he's just too good to not, be a massive success, and he would deserve all of it. So that's cool. But so the writing thing is weird because I've only been kind of doing the writing game. It's like a whole nother game, separate from being an artist. So I've only been at it for about 2 years, and it takes time and a lot of hustle to get in the rooms with some of these artists. And but I love it. Like I love writing for other people, so it's been really fun. So as far as like cuts go, I don't have any like huge. I've worked with John Oates and Meghan Trainor and some other big people, and I've worked with some of the best writers and stuff like that. So I'm really enjoying it for sure.
That's really cool. Well, I don't think I even have to ask this question because I had the question down. Are you pretty much working as a full-time musician? It sounds like between your artist stuff and your writing stuff, you are more than full-time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. 100%.
So do you have any stories for struggling musicians that can kind of help them just bust through some walls? Because I know, all of us have had those times where we're like, oh my gosh, I think I just want to give up. Like, this is not working for me. I'm hitting a wall. Can you give them any like specific stories that you went through and how you busted through that and how you got to where you are today?
Well, I think, I don't know, for me, the biggest thing that I think I've ever seen, and the thing for me that has been, I think, the biggest, I guess I'd like to say increment, because I see a career growth in the music industry as increments. You don't really ever like just hit it big. Like, there are the occasional one-hit wonders, but if you're, a DIY artist like I am, it's all about those little incremental successes that slowly bring you up, Right. And I saw the biggest jump, I think, when I released Somebody Someone last February. because the song is so personal and so real. And I don't think that I had really had the guts to like take the plunge and do that until then, for so many reasons, just because of my own personal situation and, because I'm like a human and shit like that. But it was such an eye opener for me, and it has turned everything around for me in terms of how I view my art and how I view the release of my art as something that's a platform for my own personal growth and connecting with my fans and all these people on this level that has been so much more than it was before. I think I've always written music about like self-empowerment and overcoming your adversities and all of that, but I haven't really shared my own stuff, and I haven't shared, really my personal stuff. And the more I've been doing that, the more I've found that it's not only liberating, it's also liberating from a career standpoint. And I've noticed how much my career has grown because of it.
That is cool. And I mean, a song like that, it is very personal for you, but it's also very personal for everybody that's been through something like that.
Yeah.
And so you can write something and get that catharsis of like getting it out there and also being super authentic, but that song will, become its own thing to people that listen to it. So I think sometimes it's hard to get past our own, like, I'm putting myself out there, and everybody's going to know what I'm going through and what's happened and all that stuff. But when people approach a song, they're approaching it from their own perspective. And
Totally.
That's cool that someone's sharing this, but this is what this means to me. Like this is bringing up all these images for me and experiences. And, so sometimes I think we're just like over scared to be authentic. And, everybody that's listening to a song, they're always thinking like, how do I approach this from my perspective?
Totally. Absolutely. And I think that the fact that I think just doing that, initially it's scary as hell.
Huh.
But I think that once you do it and you realize, oh, we're all in this together, everybody has their own version of this, or just because this is my reality doesn't make it someone else's reality. It kind of changes the game, and it's really liberating,
Yeah. And I think, obviously that song, you wrote it in a very universal way. It's very personal, but it's not like you said on a Tuesday and this person's name and this happened, because then nobody's going to identify with it. So, I just wanted to point that out. As writers, we always have to remember that like we're writing something very personal, but we have to make it such that it can be universal.
Right. Absolutely.
So great. So I just want to ask, because obviously you've worked with a lot of great people, like what has been the most mind-blowing thing that's happened to you in your career so far? Like it could be like someone you got to work with or a certain audience you got to perform in front of, or an award or anything, like just that thing that you're like, oh my gosh, pinch me, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah. So Hall & Oates, I'm like a huge Hall & Oates fan.
Oh, me too.
And I was playing in Nashville. I believe this is about 4 or 5 years ago. I was playing a show in Nashville called the Music City Roots. And it's a place called the Loveless Cafe, and they broadcast it live on the radio. And it's a cool thing they do every week on Wednesday. And they have 4 artists go, and it's a big hang, and lots of people go out. It's in a huge barn, like a giant barn that's like a fancy barn,
Cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. So I play this set, and I go over to my merch table, and I had a friend there helping me, and he goes, dude, he didn't have his mustache, but I'm pretty sure John Oates just bought all your CDs and he's looking for you. And I was like, what? Like, are you fucking kidding me? So I I was like, well, where is he? And, was looking around for him a little bit, couldn't find him. So I was like, oh, bummer. Oh, well. And then I went back into the green room, and he was in the green room hanging out. And he came over and introduced himself. And, in my head, I was like, yeah, I know who you are. Like, freaking out, trying not to, like, I don't fangirl out a lot. And I was, like, totally fangirling out. And he was like, well, I would love to write sometime. And I was like, okay, John Oates, let's write a song. So he wrote down his number on a napkin and gave it to me. And I called him, the next day and set up a session. And we wrote, we've written several songs now, but we wrote some songs and co-produced them together and put them on a record I released a couple years ago called Live to Try. They're the Oatesy songs on the record. Super Oatesy. Because he has such a style and he has such a vibe. It was really interesting to see how those songs kind of took shape with his imprint on them. But that was kind of that would definitely, like, for in my career, I think that's one of the, like, oh my gosh moments. Like,
that is very cool.
I can't believe this is actually happening right now.
For me as a child of the 80s, like, oh my gosh, John Oates at my show. What?
John, and then, like, oh, I'm sitting in a room with my, just writing a song with John Oates. So real. Like, the first writing session, I remember I was just like, it just didn't seem real.
Wow. That's so cool. So speaking of shows, do you at this point, do you still book your own shows? Do you have a booking agent? How did that kind of evolve for you on booking these tours?
I've had freelance booking agents. I have management that handles some booking. And I definitely book, like, myself too, because when you're out and about, like, you meet people, obviously, like, you meet people, they want to talk about doing a show, you have a personal connection with somebody, especially for fundraisers and private events, there's all kinds of people that I'm trying to meet and run into and make some stuff happen with. So kind of a little bit of everything. We're in the process talking to some major agencies. And I think that's definitely a goal of mine, is to kind of nail that down and kind of just get a big picture, long-term agent to come on board with the team. So.
Right. But I'm assuming that for people that are starting out, you would say, like, baby steps, like, start out booking yourself, then maybe hire a freelance, kind of like the way you did it.
Yeah. And you'll find, like, agents, until you find the right agent, there's really no need to have any kind of, like, formal contract where you're going to, like, lock yourself into somebody. I think a lot of people feel like they need to have a contract with somebody, and I just would recommend doing it via email and a handshake until for certain that this is the person you want booking you, and this is the person that's going to take you from the 50 capacity room to the 50K capacity room.
That's so true, because it's not just about you proving yourself to them. They need to prove themselves to you that they can actually book you, and just, agreeing on a percentage, like you said, and an email and a handshake, I think is good for starting out.
Yeah. I mean, and if you guys don't trust each other, if they don't trust that you're going to pay them the 10% of what you're making on your shows, then I don't know. And that's how I feel about a lot of things in the music industry. I feel like things are sometimes a little heavily contracted, and people jump into contracts pretty quickly. So that would be definitely a recommendation. But yeah, book yourself, do it, because, I think that also don't be afraid to talk about money, and don't be afraid to, like, feel like you're worth your time. And traveling, is not easy. And a lot of the times, like, people are quick to be like, oh, well, you only, you're playing, technically you're making X amount per hour, and it's not true. Well, you're paying me for my travel time. You're paying me for the price of my instrument. You're paying me for the amount of time it took me to write the material. You know, you're paying me for an experience that I've had to create over time. And it also takes time to travel. So I think people kind of undervalue also the social sacrifices of traveling to do these shows as well, and what it does to you on a personal level. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there are definitely things that I have sacrificed to do it,
Yeah, I think that's so true. And we just think like, or, beginning musicians, I think like, oh, I'm on the stage for 2 hours, so I should be paid for these 2 hours, but no. And then the venues try to convince us of that too. I think if you're green and you're not standing up for yourself, but I worked for the opera for years, and you see these artists, they get paid $10,000 a performance, right? But they're only doing 4 performances in your city. And they've been there for a month rehearsing, and they've relocated their family for a month and lived in an apartment and all this, plus they have all these years of training. Like, yeah, they do deserve that.
Right.
And, per performance fee. This just happens to be the way they get paid instead of by the hour.
Right. Right. And especially when when you have a message to, that's hopefully, going to create an experience and create something that you walk away with that you'll have like forever. You know what I mean? Like I like to go to shows where I'm just like, my mind is blown. Like I never thought, or the lyrics are just so engaging or whatever. I mean, that's the kind of experience you want when you go to these shows anyways. So why undervalue that?
I agree. I mean, I try now that I'm older too, to like focus my money spending on making memories and experiences. And so, yeah, I could go out and buy a new outfit, or I could go to this amazing concert.
Word. Exactly.
Yeah. So I always ask this question, just because we are the female entrepreneur musician and we talk about, making money from music. And so can you kind of outline a little bit, like, where are your streams of income from? Like, is a lot of it from your live performances? How much, I don't want like specific numbers, but like maybe percentages or generalizations about, how much you actually make on merch or online sales versus, actual physical sales.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, the physical sales are really, merch sales for me. I don't have my stuff is in a few of the independent album stores across the US, but, and it's not like at Walmart or something.
Yeah. It's usually like live shows. People have that experience. They want to take it home.
Yeah, totally. So, merch is definitely a big part of my income. I think the biggest part of my income has been licensing. So those licensing placements and keeping those going has been kind of a focus for me. And then I'd say licensing is probably 50% of my income, and then 40% is shows, and then the rest is kind of merch sales.
Okay. How about online? Do you feel like, are you getting a lot of money from streaming or, iTunes sales?
Yeah, I actually, I do. I make a pretty good amount of money monthly in YouTube streaming, Spotify streaming, all that stuff, and the more music you have out there and the more places you have to visit, it's like pennies in a bucket. The more buckets you have,
it's true.
It's totally the game.
Yeah. So. Is that like total discovery, or are you sending your fans there like through your newsletter and stuff? To like streaming or iTunes?
Yeah. I mean, and also like, any and all social media, press, like all those opportunities, you have to, grab at all of them. I think the more opportunity you have for exposure, whether it's online or like face to face with people, the more people are going to be interacting with you on socials. And the more that happens, the more they're likely to go stream your music or go look at your videos. It's all about just getting yourself out there.
It is. I mean, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to put your stuff up on Spotify and people are just going to discover you there.
Right.
I mean, the hordes of songs that are on Spotify,
Right.
you know, occasionally you're on Pandora and you're on somebody else, you know, someone's listening to this kind of music and then you pop up and you get discovered. I mean, I've discovered music that way, but I think you're absolutely right. Like we need to make sure that we're as everywhere as possible that we can be. So we're top of mind.
Yep.
Without obviously being obnoxious, you know.
Yeah. Then there's that.
So speaking of that, like what is your favorite way to interact with your fans on social media? Do you have like platforms of choice, or do you interact on a regular daily basis with your fans online?
I try and do as much as I can. I think that especially for me and what I'm trying to do with my music, it's extremely important for me to stay connected with my fans. So I think Instagram and Facebook have really been monumental for me in terms of, you know, connecting with people. I find them the easiest to use. YouTube is also, you know, an amazing outlet that I'm learning more about, trying to get more into that. Facebook is great though. And you know what? I actually have had so much interaction on my fan page and seen so much interaction from one fan to another and people talking to each other that my management and I went ahead and created a support group for fans.
Oh, wow.
And we haven't even, there has been no post about it. We posted once and it was in like a feed, because I'll post something and, you know, there'll be like a really long feed, and we responded and whatever, posted the support group, and it's already up to like 600 people in there. And
wow.
Every day, like everybody's, you know, talking to each other and posting inspirational quotes and talking about what they're dealing with and sharing their stories.
So it's kind of like the message that your music puts out there has inspired these people to like connect or raise their hand and say, yeah, I deal with that and I want to be empowered.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. And they text each other. They have these, we have exchanged phone numbers, and
oh my gosh,
they've come to, you know, actually met a few of them in person.
Wow. I mean, that just makes your music so much more than a music. It's like a movement.
Well, hopefully so. You know what I mean? Like and the thing is that for me, it's been a movement for me, you know, and for my life, and for everything that, you know, kind of I've been dealing with. And it's been really incredible to be able to share it with other people that are sharing it back.
That is so, so powerful. Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been really valuable. I knew when I first heard your music that I was going to like you, because I loved the messages that you had and your style and all that. And I was right. So thank you so much for coming on. And I knew that what you had to say would be really valuable for our audience as well, because you've seen so many different sides, you know, the publishing side and writing side, and then being on a label for a while and, you know, doing it yourself out there on the road. I mean, it's really impressive what you've built, and it does take a long time and it takes a lot of hard work, and you've stuck with it. So I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on. I think what you're doing is incredible, and certainly looking forward to hearing more from you, and you should get Jen Bostic up in here for sure.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to like send her a message right now. It's been a little bit since I've been in touch with her. So can you tell our listeners how they can find you, the best way to connect with you online?
Yes. I have a website. It's daphnewillis.com. That's DAPHNEWILLIS.com. You can go check out my music on Spotify and follow me there. Facebook is a great spot to find me, as well as Instagram. And I have a lot of videos on YouTube as well.
And is it on socials? Is it all just Daphne Willis? Lucky you.
I know.
Some like Daphne _official, you know, some weird thing.
Yeah, Daphne _official Willis 123 music.
Yeah, lucky for both of us, we both have really unique names. So we, you know, as long as you didn't wait until 2017 to get on there.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, everybody go out there and check out DaphneWillis.com and connect with her on social and get some of her, start streaming some of her music on Spotify. We'll definitely, actually, when this comes out, we'll definitely have already had some of her music on the Women of Substance podcast. So I'm excited about that. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Daphne, so much for sharing your story today. Now go out and make great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business. Female Entrepreneur Musician has been brought to you by FEMusician.com and FemaleMusicianAcademy.com. With editing by Jen Eads of 317 Sound Design and music by Stella Ronson.